Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Ukrainian Perspective. My name is Vitaly Zabolotsky. I am the chairman of Ukrainian Association in Tampere. And I'm extremely happy and excited today because this event, not only it is very topical today, not only we couldn't pick a better time to actually bring the Ukrainian voice out there, but also it's a culmination of a lot of work to unify all the various communities, Ukrainian communities and pro-Ukrainian communities in Finland and in Tampere. And you can see me, representative of Ukrainians of Tampere, Kristina, the chair of Ukraina Talo, Vasil, the head of Ukrainian Association in Finland, proudly presenting this event to you together today. Because, thank you. Because only united we can achieve the victory. We're talking a lot about unifying Europe, unifying the world in this fight against Russia. We need to start with ourselves and give an example. I'll hand the mic to Vasil. He will say a few words. So, Vasil Hutsul, head of Ukrainian Association in Finland.
Yeah, thank you, Vitaly. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I prepared a short speech, not long as Vitaly. But anyway, dear friends, we are really honored to welcome you to Ukrainian Perspective. Unfortunately, the war against Ukraine has been going on for 3 years now. In these challenging times, we remain committed to supporting Ukraine and Ukrainians in every possible way, humanitarian, informational, and diplomatic. Cultural diplomacy and advocacy are just as crucial as military and humanitarian aid. Events like this not only amplify Ukraine's voice on the global stage, but also help shape the right narrative about our struggle, values, and future. We deeply appreciate your participation in today's panel discussions and encourage you to engage actively. Together, we made Ukraine stronger and more visible to the world. Thank you for standing with us.
Dear guests, welcome to Tampere. Welcome to Ukraina Talo, Ukrainian House. We are very happy that you are here, and we are very happy to be here, united. And this event is very important. It's very important not only for Ukrainians, but also for Finns and for international friends. And as Vitaly has said, that only united we can do great things together. I'm very happy that today, on Friday, we are here and we are united and strong. Slava Ukraini!
And please welcome our wonderful host for today. I don't think there is any better person in Finland, honestly, to lead this discussion today. Matti Posio, Finnish journalist, Director-in-Chief of London Media. Matti, the stage is yours.
Vitaly, дуже дякую. Panie та panowie, dobry wieczór. Hyvää iltaa kaikille. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to this event. As Vitaly said in the wonderful introduction, my name is Matti Posio. I'm a long-time Finnish journalist and newspaper editor, and I'm also a student of Ukrainian language nowadays. Thank you very much. But the event is going to be in English. And I am also very proud to have been united with so many Ukrainians. The Ukrainians of Tampere actually asked me to host and moderate the discussions today, and they also told me to try and make it interesting for Finns. So that's why I'm here, but also because I'm a friend and a true believer in the Ukrainian struggle for so many things that we all value and know about. And we are going to find out more tonight. We have a full house, we have a full program, and definitely there will be time for some short comments and questions in between of the three discussions. And we are going to have three panels. First one is called Preparing for War, Ukrainian Lessons. Second one, in about 1 hour from now, will be called Struggles and Threats of Ukrainian Communities in Finland. And the third one is about Ukrainian culture in Finland. And first of all, I must say I'm extremely happy that we are talking about these things. It is already one very important factor that we are all here, that we are talking about these things and the whole angle of the evening. And of course, well, there is a need to hear the Ukrainian voices. And definitely we are not going to have a singing competition, but we will hear voices of several Ukrainians, because there is a disease going around in the world which is to talk about Ukraine without hearing Ukrainians. So let's do our part today. Once again, welcome. Та обов'язково сьогодні можемо говорити також українською мовою. Чи це треба, хтось може перекладати. Тобто ласкаво просимо. And now let's get to the first actual discussion. And here we have three panelists, and I would like to welcome you all. First of all, here in Tampere. Oh, and welcome to you out there watching the stream. Thank you for putting out this picture and voice, and I hope everything goes smoothly. So welcome to watch this on YouTube, and also you can see the recording later on if you don't have the time to watch everything at once in this live stream. So I would like to introduce to you Mr. Arseny Synarenko in our first panel. Arseny is a researcher at Finnish Youth Research Society, a member of the board of Ukrainian Association in Finland, and just in general a person who knows a lot about the situation of Ukrainians, both in the world but also here in Finland. And then I see two other people on the screen, and it's wonderful to see both of you again. It is Solomia Homa. Very warm welcome, I should say, to the camera. Solomia is coordinator of international cooperation at Ukrainian Security and Cooperation Center, Ukraiński Center Bezpieki ta Współpracy. And she is joining us, I believe, in Kyiv. And the third one is someone who we call a friend here in Tampere since 2 years ago. It's the war reporter and founder of Frontliner Media, photographer, and also my friend Andrei Dubčak. And Andrei will join us right now. And I was thinking that today it would be nice to pose the first question to all of the panelists, a very short one. Before we say anything else, I would like you to tell me and everybody, well, in your case, Andrei and Solomia, where you are now, but the question is, what is the most, the nearest place, the most home place, or the most beautiful place for you in Ukraine? Rідне місце. So let's start with that, and let's try if we can hear your voice. Solomia Homa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You can hear me?
Yes, wonderful.
Sure.
So there's
Cool.
a full house of Ukrainians and Finns here, and I could also ask you by the show of hands, how many of you are Ukrainians actually? About 40%. And how many are Finns? About 55%, and the rest. Okay, so that you know. So Solomia, please, your loveliest place in Ukraine.
Thank you for a really nice question for the start. I would say that my favorite place in Ukraine is a place called Vitachi. It is near Kiev, on the hills near Dnipro River, and I like this place because I can see from these hills basically all eastern part of Ukraine, and I really like to like this scenery, like this view.
Very nice, thank you. And I understand you are being very busy in Kiev these days because of your work, which deals with well, you name it.
Yeah, with a lot of security issues, especially on everything that's happening on international level and also on the front line. So we are really deeply integrated into all these matters. Yeah.
And let's go to Andriy Dubchak. Where are you, and what is the loveliest place for you in Ukraine?
Hello, now I am in Kiev with my wife and with my son, just 2 months age, and the best place for me, Kalinivka. Vinnytsia region is central part of Ukraine, and it's my hometown. It's the best place for me. But so I want to add big thank you for Finland. Because I know you talk a lot to Ukraine, you give home and flat to a lot of Ukrainians who now is in Finland, and also respect and honor to Finland fighters who fought during this years of the war in the front line. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us, and now if we can get some more volume for Andriy, it would be great. In the meantime, Arseny Svinarenko, what is your answer to my first question?
Yeah, hello everyone, and it's very easy to answer this question. Odessa is my hometown, and I so much miss Odessa, and I think I lived in Odessa in the very best times when the city was flourishing through the 1990s. But then actually my journey to Finland started 26 years ago when I took a train from Odessa, and in about 48 hours I came to Tampere, and here I am today.
Great. Andriy, you have been out on an assignment not so long ago. I understand you were near the front lines again working. Could you tell us what is the situation and what is the mood music right now in your car and in the front lines in the war?
Yep, I have been to different locations. It was Donetsk region, it was near Pokrovsk, near Kramatorsk, near Bryansk, and also near Kursk region. We made vox pop about opinion of the local about the situation on the political level, about all this negotiation. We asked civilian and we asked military. And what the answers was we need to fight, because otherwise Russia will go ahead. After small ceasefire time, Russian army will attack Ukraine again. So we need to fight, and we need to protect and stay, and we need our lands back. That's the main vox pop from the local and from the military of the front line. Situation is not bad, honestly, because a lot of soldiers and commanders told me that Russian forces are super exhausted. They try to attack, and for example, near Toretsk, they tried to attack one place on the front line for 2 years, and just one unit of Putin company killed. I don't know. 50 people kill 1,500 Russian, and 400 of the vehicle, tanks, artillery, and so on. And Russia is looking hostage, so that's why they try to use the political way to get Ukraine. But no, situation really very hard with these modern drones, and now 12 kilometers from the front line is potentially dead zone. Need to be very careful with report.
Can you hear well, more or less? Okay, that's good. I think this is the best voice we can do, but Andrei, you are speaking very clearly. Of course, now it has been 1,100 days since Russia started the full-scale attack on Ukraine and Ukrainians, and it has been 11 years since Russia invaded illegally Crimea. So it's a lot of zeros and ones, and it's useful to hear you remind us about the situation in the front lines every day. Let's jump for a little bit to Solomia and your point of view. I understand that you are dealing a lot with researching hybrid warfare, and hybrid warfare more and more is part of the actual warfare. Our topic today is preparing for war, and we didn't specifically name for which war and who is going to prepare, because it can be us here in Finland preparing for a future war. It could be Ukraine preparing for the war right now, or preparing for the war 3 years ago or 11 years ago, or it could be the wider Europe even. So what do you see, Solomia, as the most important task in your line of work at the moment?
Okay, I wanted to say the first thing, my thanks for inviting me to this event and for this honor to join you today. In context of preparation for the war, I wanted to talk not about what we're doing now, because a lot of things related to what we're done in the previous years, basically to prepare for the war. Because can you hear me well?
All right, yes. Please go on. It is a good point that you're making, and we can hear you actually a little bit more clearly even than Andri.
Okay, good. Because I'm hearing myself and it's a little bit hard to talk, but
never mind.
To work with that. The most important thing is, of course, for me to talk about what we're done in previous years to prepare for the war, because our center, Ukrainian Security and Cooperation Center, from 2014, we were researching this thing called hybrid warfare, especially like hybrid warfare that Russia against Ukraine. And from our experience, we can say that the most important thing to in case of the war is, of course, to understand the nature of the war you will fight in. And the most important thing is to understand if the war is already not going on. Because it's quite common to talk about the war as about missile strikes or enemy forces that are crossing the borders of your country, right? But it's really the start of actual fighting, and this is why we are talking about hybrid war, because we understood that what we understood from studying the hybrid war from 2014, that things that we as a normal human beings could consider as relationship between countries, as it was for Ukraine and Russia, for example, relationships about societies, economies, and many other things, they could be they could be as such only on the surface, because Russia see all these things from perspective, the tools that Russia could use to influence the decision of the country or to interfere into internal politics. Basically, you could approach these things as a normal one, but when you start to resist to such foreign interference, all these instruments will be used to basically destroy your sovereignty. And in case of Ukraine, Russia basically used all possible instruments of hybrid warfare, like political parties, TV channels, businesses, civil society organizations that were owned by Russian proxies. And the thing that Ukraine done is basically from 2014 we understood the threat of hybrid war, and we've done a lot of work fighting them, despite the great desire of Russia for revenge. And even now, we see how Russia used these instruments, trying to break our unity in our society, trying to one more time influence the decision on the political level here in Ukraine. And the most dangerous thing is that Russia is doing that not only in Ukraine, but also in the countries that around the world. Especially, we see this in Europe. And also the issue that our center is working with. We are trying to see this pattern of hybrid war, trying to identify them, and of course trying to to tell more about them, so we could we could fight them, and to fight them, because it's a really important part regarding the victory of Ukraine. It's not only about the things that are happening on front line. It's of course about wider range of the fightings around the world.
Much. Now, guys, if you can press any button so that the screen doesn't go off. There's a warning on the screen that it'll go off unless you press a button. So let's all press a button now and continue. It was a very interesting point that you're making about what war actually is. Where does war start? Where does it end? Now, there are a lot of discussions about ending the war, and it will again be a very timely question. What is war and what is peace? And it seems that the hybrid warfare was always going on, and then it became more and more and more, while Russia was also preparing for some smaller wars and another war and another war, and then the full-scale war. So where would you, Solomia, place the beginning of the war? When did it become a war?
Tricky question, because in Ukrainian context, it's of course really important in that sense, talked about the history of the relationship with Ukraine and Russia, right? Because in some sense, when Ukraine was the part of Soviet Union, that was some other sort of influence that Russia was doing on Ukrainian society, and it was with the goal to basically integrate Ukrainian society into this, right, Soviet Union. But after Ukraine got the independence, Russia basically continued its work into this deep integration into already independent Ukraine. And it was about military spheres, about politics, information, social spheres that include such things as religion, culture, education, and this also was about economy and integration, this great this great Russian influence. It's basically was the start of Ukrainian independence. But when Russia started to use this as basically the thing as part of the aggression against Ukraine, then I believe that we could remember the case of Tuzla and Russian first try basically to make some aggressive actions against Ukraine, but it was stopped by the President Kuchma at the time. And the second really important thing that I could remember this, basically when Russia started to use our gas dependency onto Russia, and how we were forced to sign agreements with Russia for paying high prices for getting the gas in Ukraine, and how this led to everything what happened in Crimea, because Ukraine once again signed this agreement to agreement that gave the permission for Russian fleet to stay in Crimea for a longer time. And then basically everything was really speedily started to work in 2013 and 2014 when there was the Revolution of Dignity, because then there was this clear sign that Russia wanted to use this influence into Ukrainian politics to force us to sign the agreement with economical this union with Russian Federation, and basically block for us a future cooperation with European Union. And this was on the political level, but of course trying to when Ukrainian society showed that we won't agree for such way how things could go on, then Russia used this hybrid warfare influences basically to annex Crimea, because this was also the clear example of hybrid war, with all these soldiers without any signs invading basically Crimean Peninsula. And also with we could say this about the start of the aggression of Russia in the Donetsk region, because there Russia basically used Ukrainians to cover its direct participation in the war, and it was really successful strategy at the start, because a lot of countries of the world basically were justifying the actions of a lot of things that were happening at the time in the Donetsk and Luhansk region, and basically Russia used this to cover this first act of aggression. But yeah, if we're talking about when the war started, then I guess that this basically
hoping for a date, but
a lot of
it would be very difficult to say what the actual date when the war began was, right? So that's the lesson here. I'm going to ask you soon about your short lessons to Finland and to Donald Trump about how to prepare for war, because for me it sounded like a whole lot of this war that you mentioned, it really actually on the surface looked a lot like cooperation and agreements. You mentioned the gas deal with Russia, and now we come to this very slippery slope with someone like Trump trying to arrange meetings about the case of Ukraine. And of course it's obvious that it doesn't mean a lot if you have two countries negotiating about something that belongs to the third country, and the third country is not present, without any sort of international wider framework to it. So it might be that all of these deals and negotiations will not mean very much at all. But on the other hand, we in the media are always in the habit of writing headlines like "The fate of Ukraine is being decided at this hour, at this day, this week, in a couple of weeks." But weeks have gone by, and Mr. Trump had 2 summits with the North Korean dictator in his first term, and nothing actually changed in South Korea or North Korea because of all those pompous meetings. So, but in the meantime, another question to Andri while the line is good. How do you prepare for war? How did you prepare for full-scale war? And now that you are mentoring, I know, younger war reporters, there is a whole new generation of war reporters and photographers in Ukraine, unfortunately. And I hope your child, your very, very young son, who is only 2 months old, that he will not become a war reporter. Maybe he would like become a feature writer or love letter writer or novelist. That is what I hope for him. But how do you prepare?
It was not my dream to be military reporter, honestly. And if someone said me in 2013 you will be military photographer and reporter, I will probably say to him, you are crazy, because you need to have a plan, really. Like, you need to understand the war could happen any moment, and it will happen unexpectedly. Yeah. So today I'll just talk about it. Tomorrow the Russian troops, like, on the nearest street or the nearest district. Now you need to have a plan for family and for you personally, because usually it's a huge mess when the invasion started. Communication are broken, no fuel, no food, no connection. So you need to have you need to agree plan with your family what you will do if something happens. You need to have enough fuel, enough food. You need to know the roads without Google Maps, yeah, because it will be traffic jam huge on the road. And you not need to be scared, because panic is the most dangerous things during such period of the time, like war, invasion, so on. What else? No, the main idea, you need to be prepared, you need to have plan for you and for family, and you need to have fuel and car. That's my advice to the Finland. Because the man went to the army, and the woman with kids must leave, because it's a very bad idea to stay in combat zone and to stay near the front line. So families must leave the area and run away.
I think we are losing you a little bit, but now the line is coming back. So I know that you have been in very tough situations where only a strike of good luck actually saved your life and the life of your colleagues, war reporters. In one occasion, it was just a case of which hotel to pick in the front lines. And if you had dinner in the other hotel, then that's where the missile hit. So what is the main thing, in addition to having extremely good luck, for a war reporter? How do you prepare in the actual daily work? How do you decide where you go?
No, you need to think. It's, risk assessment. It's. Do you hear me?
Very well, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Risk
just go on.
Yeah, risk assessment nowadays is super crazy and super important. You need to think about hotel. Right now, it's not possible. I think you need to rent a flat. So you need to minimize your risks on the front line. If you will go together with military somewhere, you need to understand the professional level of this military and understanding of the real on-the-ground situation in combat zone. Because if it's just press officer, he probably don't know a lot of things around him. Yeah, if it's like real soldier and real commander from this front line in this time. Probably he knows the situation. He have information about if the Russian drones are flying now or Russian bombers send the guided bomb on the front line or toward your location. All this information is super important. And of course, you need to be ready to reject some suggestions to go to the front line because right now it's super boring to see the old Soviet weapon firing toward Russian or Grad firing. It's not in use anymore. You need to pay attention to the people's story, to the people's feeling and emotion, because it's much more it can explain much more to the audiences in Ukraine and abroad. That's probably the main. You need to pay attention on the front line now.
I could ask the audience here, how many of you follow Andri's work on Frontliner, get to know the pictures? We had an exhibition here in Tampere also in 2023 called Ukraine Beyond News Pictures. Yeah, so you and your colleagues, also your wife, you have been working in the front lines for the full 3 years now, and even before that. And I remember that you were also a producer in the documentary about Revolution Hidnosti. The Winter on Fire is on Netflix. So you've been around for a long time. Do you ever get tired?
Sometimes, yes, because, for example, crazy period of the time, it was Revolution of Dignity, and then, of course, invasion. I meet invasion in Severodonetsk, it's Donetsk region, and my wife called me from Kharkiv. Lisa told me that invasion started, but I was ready at that time. And then I need to decide Kharkiv or Mariupol. But at the same time, we got information the 80 kilometers Russian convoy drive toward Kiev. So I understand the Kiev will be main battlefield, and we drive to Kiev. And this first half a year of the invasion, it was crazy rush, crazy run. We tried to cover all possible locations, front lines, Donetsk, Kharkiv, Kiev, Kherson, Mykolaiv. And in first year, I probably drive by own approximately 100,000 of the kilometers on my car. Yeah. So it was super exhausted period of the time. I was exhausted after half a year of the running after invasion.
Thank you for the work that you do every day from year to year. Let's come to this auditorium here in Tampere, and Arseni Svynarenko, it is a pleasure to finally meet you in person, because I've known that you are a visible Ukrainian person who is taking part in many discussions in Finland. You have thought about, as a researcher, but as a man, you have thought about how to prepare for war. What would be your, if I would use President Stubb's favorite question, what are your 3 points?
Yes, thank you very much for this question. I do have 3 points.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Alexander Stubb. I will start first of all with the idea of increasing awareness about possible risks and having an open discussion about these risks. And then the second point would be there is plenty of knowledge about Russia, about many European societies, but what is lacking very often is actually kind of critical approach to what we know about those cultures. And so the second point would be to decolonize our knowledge about Russia, our knowledge about Ukraine, our knowledge about many different big and small nations, and not to look at them from the perspective of one big superpower, because this is how it too often unfortunately happened. And we look at too many people in Ukraine, here in Finland, looked at Ukraine through Russian kind of prism, from Russian viewpoint, and that was a big mistake. And fortunately, I think in the Finnish army, they had much more realistic approach and to kind of increasing awareness and preparedness. At least if you ask any Finns who served as conscripts in Finnish army in 70s and 80s, they will definitely tell you a few phrases in Russian language, like "ruki vverh."
Yes,
so
exactly.
you can guess who is the opposite side of this confrontation. But then
even in the Cold War times, and when there was this Finlandisierung, or Finland was partly hindered in our actions, and of course Finland was not a neutral country because we wanted to be, but because we could not join the Western organizations. That's my understanding as a long-time journalist. So even in those years, the army always knew which is the direction where the enemy would come from. Even if they would say it could come from the north or from the west, Sweden or Norway, but it could also come from the Soviet Union.
Yeah, so
and in the meantime, you were also having a big cooperation, and even a forced cooperation and mutual assistance agreement with the Soviet Union, which was really a binding document for Finns. So it was the official friendship, but the army knew.
Yeah, exactly. Finland, as a result of this...
the people deep down.
As a result of the Second World War, Finland lost sovereignty, or part of the sovereignty, but preserved independence. So decisions about foreign policy alliances, I think Finland joined the European Union too late, very late, and
NATO, we joined just in the nick of time, right?
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I'm saying that it's extremely important to have an open discussion about the possible risks. And it's very important to decolonize and get rid of those pre-assumptions, which for many decades we thought of like kind of normal, but they're not actually normal. And then it's also, in my opinion, like the third point is to invest into knowledge about Ukrainian defense and Ukrainian resistance, and to invest into knowledge about Ukraine. I think this is extremely important right now, because in Ukraine we actually see how the current present-day war is happening. In Ukraine we also see how the society is, what is happening with the society during the big war, and how the society is transforming, and how a huge part of the Ukrainian resistance is there in society, and it actually was there. Unfortunately, we didn't see it for too long time. Also in Ukraine, I think there was this kind of a too naive perception of Russia until 2013, 2014. Too many Ukrainians, millions of Ukrainians, I think, were too naive about Russia. But actually, the knowledge about the Russian threat was there from already in the 90s, during the revolution in Granite, or in 2004, when Ukraine defended its democracy, and there was a huge Russian interference, poisoning of a political opponent, and then I think finally, for many Ukrainians, we opened our eyes to the real threat only in 2014. But the knowledge about these risks, it's already was there existing. I remember when I came here in 1990. 8, and I did my first research project here in Tampere, just 100 meters away from here in the Department of Sociology. I brought my research on Ukrainian young people, and my findings that Ukrainian young people in 1990s felt themselves strongly European. And for them, the national identity of being Ukrainian was a kind of, first of all, civic identity, not an ethnic identity, but a kind of being part of Europe, being Ukrainian and being European is kind of was something what inseparable. And then I came here and continued my research, and I did some interviews also in Petrozavodsk in Russia. I interviewed persons from Ukrainian Association there, and then I interviewed people from the Cossack organizations, and I discovered that huge debates within Russian society, and there was part of the Russian Cossacks who were actually Ukrainian, kind of promoting the Ukrainian idea of Cossackhood and Cossack statehood, and then they were completely erased from Russia in Russia by the other group of kind of pro-state.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Would you say that we've come a long way in terms of the decolonialization of our minds? Because I'm sure we are going to go back to this in the discussion about Ukrainian culture and about the Ukrainians living in Finland. In the spring of 2022, I believe it was in April or May, my news team did a survey with all the Finnish universities, and we asked them, what kind of Ukrainian studies do you have? And the answer, plain and simple, was almost not at all. And now I am very proud that we have Ukrainian language education, several courses here in Tampere, which you will hear more about later on. In the Helsinki University there were some even back then, but I believe during these 3 years actually this mindset has changed. Maybe not enough, probably not enough, of course not enough, but it is still, because I agree with you that while I was a correspondent in Moscow for Finnish newspapers when Putin rose to power in 1999 and even before that, but I still believe that the antennas for Finns were always too much directed directly towards Moscow. And this is the truth about the whole of Europe. And then when I was a reporter in the Orange Revolution in 2004, I really could see the first a big attempt by the Ukrainian society to return the politicians, return the election results to the way of integrating towards Europe.
I think we made a huge...
So this is something that is actually common for Ukrainians and Finns, that we were also too naive, or as we say here, blue-eyed in Finland about Russia. But also it happened in Ukraine.
Yes, and definitely here in Finland there were many instances when politicians simply ignored the warnings from Finnish researchers who were warning quite early about the Russian threat and that Russia is preparing for the war. Even I did some kind of warning even without realizing it myself when I published my papers on militarization of education in Russia, and then. Many other researchers who studied the security issues also delivered this message to decision makers in Finland, to politicians, but I think too many politicians in Finland just didn't want to believe or didn't want to take it seriously.
Yeah. Well, actually what I forgot to add was that 3 years ago the universities often answered about our question about Ukrainian studies, saying that yes, we do have Russian studies, and under the Russian studies we have some lessons about the Ukrainian, angle of the Russianness, which was really something I think these people who are in charge of these programs nowadays, at least they have to take this into consideration and maybe think there is something wrong with this. Maybe there is something wrong with calling it Eurasian studies also, because of course Ukraine is not Eurasia, Ukraine is Europe. So it is a funny thing. But I guess we should join our long-distance speakers for a while. There's some time left, so I would like you to say whatever you came here to say, but also answer my question lessons how to prepare for war. So let's say, Solomia Homa, in Kiev, what are your greetings and lessons briefly to Mr. Donald Trump and then us here in Finland?
I'll start maybe with the Finland. My, let's say, recommendation onto Ukrainian experience. I've made some points. So that from my perspective, things that were the most effective, so that Ukrainian society were able to hold against against Russian aggression at the start of the full-scale invasion, and basically why Ukrainian society were able to fight back. Because this is the things that were done for in previous years, and they were really effective in that sense. Because the first thing I would say, it is the ban of Russian social networks and Russian state TV channels, because this actually helped us to cut off people from direct Russian informational influence. The second thing is independence of Ukrainian church, because this weakened the influence of Russian church that basically is working for Russian state and is the huge instrument for spreading disinformation. The third thing is the ban of TV channels that were owned, in our case, by Viktor Medvedchuk, the main, I would say, main Russian proxy in Ukraine at that time. And this helped us to cut off people from indirect Russian informational influence. And also we saw that the support of political party owned by Viktor Medvedchuk dropped by almost 10% after the ban of these TV channels. And the fourth thing is Ukraine government took control over the most important oil pipe that was also owned by Viktor Medvedchuk, and this pipe bought him almost $22 million a year. And this money he, of course, spent it inside Ukraine for his political and informational activity. I'm talking about these examples because it shows how Russia is using different spheres of different spheres of the life in country, basically to influence the society. And from our experience, I could say that the most important thing is not to fight against consequences of some things, but basically to find the roots of the problem and cut them off. Because as it was in the case with Medvedchuk for us, we fought the problem, and we basically, because of that, Russia at least was stopped in having this great influence onto Ukrainian society. And that's why the resistance of Ukrainian society was much more greater than it was in 2014.
So it's very important to cut off the internal, the enemy within, so to say.
Yeah.
That someone who is trying to speak in your name, speak for you, and do harmful things from inside your country, working for the enemy.
Yeah, this is the case, and this is the case what we are from our experience into researching the Russian hybrid war. We see how Russia is doing this in European level, basically to the most precise example to weaken the sanction against the Russian economy. Russia is using Russian businesses that still continue to operate in Europe, basically to influence the decision of, let's say, European Commission in countries that lead to the weakening of sanctions against Russia. So this is really important to work with these things, and and regarding the Trump in hybrid war, there is the specific term about different agreements, and this term is called lawfare. And this is basically means the hybrid war in the sphere of legislations and stuff like that. And Russia is, we could say, the best. Russia is using this this lawfare as a really important tool to get what it wants on an international level. This was with Minsk agreements that were signed also by Ukraine in 2014, and Russia basically are using all this stuff to get also to get its interest being realized in the future, and not basically to get the agreement itself. And it's really important to understand that this hybrid war is going on everywhere, because Russia is seeing every tool as the possibility to get its goal. So yeah, this is from my side for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just to ask you a very simple question so that we understand about the agreement. I mean, Mr. Zelensky is flying, or he's probably landed already in Washington, D.C. right now, and he's going to supposedly discuss this agreement about minerals with President Trump. Is this what you would call a loafer? Or is this something real? I mean, is it just Russia using Trump as a useful idiot, or is it actually something that Ukraine and the United States are seriously negotiating?
About the lawfare, I'm calling this all the agreement that could possibly be signed with the Russian side. With Russian side, I won't tell these things about any other country, because I know that Russia is doing that. About the agreement between Ukraine and United States, it's I believe the agreement that could be used in the best interest of the both countries. And Ukrainian president done great work into protecting basically Ukrainian interest, considering this agreement.
So it seems, and also I have seen some drafts that were published by the Kyiv Independent. Actually, it is very hard to tell what the meaning of the agreement actually is, because it is just a framework and a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, and then how it will be implemented and what it will actually mean. And if it lasts longer than the words of Mr. Trump in general, then it might be a very meaningful thing. But let's see, and who knows? Who knows is my analysis about Trump in general. So thank you very much for these thoughts, and thanks for taking the time to be with us. Please stay on the line to listen if you have time while I go to Andri, and your experience is very close to the front lines, talking to the soldiers, talking to your colleagues and people in Ukraine. What is your greeting to Finns and Trump at the moment? I mean, Finns and Trump are different creatures, just to be sure.
Yeah. No, as I said, thank you very much. Thank you, Finland, for support Ukraine, because it's super important. And Finland, the same as Ukraine, is civil society. The main target of the Russia is civil society in the countries which Russia are attacking. We know the situation with Chechnya, we know the situation with part of Georgia, with Belarus, and all other invaded by Russia countries. Russia killed civil society and then use the local population just for meat-grinder as DNR, LNR. They send just all men to the front line, and they, for now, they are dead. It's no man country, LNR, DNR. Like, no, you understand?
Yes.
To the Trump, I don't believe Trump, because information is the first weapon in the world, and Russia very well know it and use it for this hybrid warfare, for the reflexive control of other countries and societies. Trump did first he became the president. He cut financing and funding of the USAID and other United States fund which support the free press in Ukraine and other countries. And now a lot of Ukrainian media honestly will be closed and a lot of reporters will be unemployed and no article, no room, no information. In darkness and in shadow, very to operate for. For me, Trump start for super bad things about free press and.
So actually,
of course,
some of the organizations that received aid, monetary aid from the US aid, which Trump has completely frozen now and stopped. Some of these organizations were the small, very small media organizations, like local newspapers, so to say, local online media in the frontline areas. So in the front lines, of course, information is as important as bread, or even more important than bread, because you have to know what is happening. If you go this way, are you going to get hit by mortars or shelling or ammunition? If you go this way, if you go that way, I mean, it is literally a matter of life and death. So I think it is a very short-sighted thing what the United States and especially the president is doing at the moment. But if you can still hear me, would you like to give the so-called final thoughts for our people here? And Andri, do you remember what we ate when we were here together in this Ukraine house in Tampere? What is your favorite food?
It was borscht, yeah.
It was borscht. It was borscht, and I'm glad to tell you that we are going to have some in 5 minutes. Everybody except you. I'm very sorry.
The main message: you need to be ready. You need to be united, and think about the potential invasion not about as a fantasy, but think about it as about possible reality. Because just in that, with this opinion, with this like thinking, you will be ready. If you have time, you can pass the paramedical medicine course or training. If you want, if you are a man, you can pass the fire training, tactical training, so on, so on, so on. Because the possibility of the Russian invasion to Finland, it's a reality in my opinion. Not only Finland, like Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, all these countries near the Russian border is potential victims of the Russian military machine. Be ready.
Thank you for that, and I'm sure there is an understanding between me and my many colleagues that Europe has a few months of time to make some decisions about securing ourselves, because right now it seems that the United States, really as our biggest ally and our very new ally, has really aligned themselves, or at least Trump has aligned themselves with Russian propaganda. And this is a completely new historical moment in time. We don't really know how to understand this. It is crazy. It is not completely surprising though, because in the first term it was already seen and visible that Trump is somehow mesmerized and fascinated by Russian propaganda. But the things that he has said during the last week or two about Ukraine, I believe they are all based on A, wrong information, and B, lies, because it is based on the Russian narrative that Russia has been drumming on for about 10 or whichever number of years you want to choose, and now it is coming from the mouth of the American president. So this is a very tricky moment, but we'll have to see and we'll have to act, and thank you so much. And now you get the final thoughts, Arseni.
Thank you. I think it's extremely difficult to add anything after Solomia's and Andri's messages. Maybe kind of two points this time.
One and a half.
One and a half.
Then Borsch.
And then Borsch, yeah. It would be, I think for us here in Finland, it is extremely important to be active citizens and being engaged in trying to spread the knowledge about Ukraine, try to influence Finnish politicians, and because this is what we can do, and I think this is what we should do: be active citizens. And then I think for Mr. Trump or the King Donald, I think he's a businessman, so I'm confident that investing in Ukrainian victory will bring by far more benefits and profits and benefits to everyone, and also I think it will be so much more beneficial to invest later after Ukrainian victory into some construction of Trump Hotel in I don't know, in Tatarstan People Republic, or in some Novgorod Republic, Novgorod independent state of Novgorod, and so on. But first of all, investment in Ukrainian victory is benefit for all of us.
Well, now we started making Russia small again. Thank you for that. I want to add an information about this little piece of art that we have here on the scene, because this is a piece of a Russian missile that hit some houses in Dnipropetrovsk region in Ukraine, and it was painted into a piece of art with all these traditional beautiful flowers by Lera Nekrasa. So let's just savor a moment to think about that. And before we eat, I have a little surprise for you, because among us is someone who has also seen Ukraine from the front lines of diplomacy. So while I was a reporter in the Orange Revolution, Laura Reinilä was the ambassador of Finland to Ukraine in Kiev. And you have been listening to our discussion. What would be your conclusion after all these remarks?
First of all, I would like to thank all this Ukrainian good advice for us. You have experience that we can't even imagine, but you have had. And I have a great respect of Ukrainian nation. It's growing every day. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us from Ukraine here. A few thoughts which I would like to share is that when I went to Ukraine, that was in 2003, Ukrainians didn't know what is national interest. Not very well, because it was a mixture of Russian and Ukrainian. You didn't know who you were that well, and that was a Turkish colleague of mine who said that Ukraine is a country which has been deprived of its history, her language, and her identity. And it's on the basis of these facts, of these thoughts, that I have given some lectures during the last years in different communities about a background of this Ukrainian war, because I feel that this lack of knowledge that we have of your history had made it us difficult to understand your situation, but it has been. You have learned through your very heavy, hard experiences what you could have known already earlier, but you weren't told. I would like to share another remark, and that was given by Lyudmila Alexeyevna, if I'm not mistaken with the name. She was a dissident, Russian dissident, and got...
Belarusian, I believe.
No, born in Yevpatoria, so actually Ukrainian origin, but
She lived to be almost 100 years.
Yes, yes. And she came to Kiev in 2006 to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Ukrainian Helsinki group, which had been created in order to help Leonid Brezhnev to
understand the concept of human rights?
yes, or to put in practice the Helsinki Final Act and to respect human rights. Yes,
Sure.
Yes. This Helsinki group in Kiev, they had 21 members, and they had spent together 550 years in prison because of their belief in Ukrainian rights. Lyudmila Alexeyevna came from Moscow to tell the audience how she was jealous about Ukrainians, because you Ukrainians, you have something to fight for. It's, and that was the culture, history, language, identity. Russians didn't have anything to fight for because they have had all this all the time. So these were some of them.
Thank you for your thoughts, Madam Ambassador. Definitely there are so many people we should remember today, but I think we all know who they are and will remember them in our own time. Of course, there are people who are Ukrainians who are in Russian prisons, who are in the occupied territories, subjected to all the unpleasant and horrible things that are happening there, and just ordinary people all across Ukraine today. And also I would like to remind the watchers and listeners who are watching the stream that you are watching us live here in Ukrainatalo in Tampere, right next to the railway station. And we have a discussion, Ukrainian Perspectives, going on. And now we are going to go for a break, which is a wonderful break because the local activists have something to treat us with. And while we are eating, you have a break. But we'll be back at about 1850-ish.
Let's do a 40-minute break for wonderful borscht prepared by Ukrainatalo volunteers. Really huge shout out to them because they've been doing this for like last couple of days.
The idea was mine.
Yes. Idea was Matti's. Big thanks
ingredient of our unity.
Big thanks to all the panelists. Please shout out to everybody.
Thank you. Дякуємо.
And in 40 minutes, we would come back to the second panel, which would be about the struggles and threats of Ukrainian communities in Finland. So meet you back at 6:55.
And one more time, Solomia Homa, Andriy Dubčak, and Arseny Svinarenko, thank you very much. Дуже дякую. And all the best, and please be safe tonight.
Dear guests, attention please, we are starting our second panel. Please welcome the second round of panelists, and the topic today is struggles and threats of Ukrainian communities in Finland. I would let Matti Posio. Matti, would you like to introduce our panelists?
Vitali, thank you. I absolutely would. And please, ladies and gentlemen, if you can return to your seats and finish your coffees. There will be another break after this panel discussion. So welcome back. And also welcome back you who are watching our stream from Ukrainatalo, the Ukraine House in Tampere. And thank you for some nice feedback I already got from people watching. So thank you, Mom, and everyone out there. And now it's time for our next panel, and we continue with our topic of Voice of Ukraine. It is not a singing competition, although you are able and allowed to sing if you like. And our next panel is going deeper into the everyday life of Ukrainians here in Finland. And we have 4 experts who are going to talk about this issue from somewhat different angles. And let's see if we can find the most important questions in the lives of Ukrainians here in Finland today. And also, after this panel, I'm hoping to have a few short questions from the audience. So if you have anything, please think about what your question could be. So I welcome you, our dear speakers. We have Nadia Fedorova, Svitlana Ryabova, Maria Kostiainen, and Kristina Lieskakova. And Kristina is also representing this beautiful venue that we have today. So thanks for your efforts. We are having a very cozy evening. So. And once again, the Borscht Spampushkami was excellent. Thank you. And Sala and whatever the rest. I'm sure there is something on the second break as well. Now, Nadia Fedorova, welcome. And my question to you, as for everybody, what is your home place, your most lovely place in Ukraine?
My hometown is Vinnytsia, a beautiful city, and actually Helsinki kind of reminds me of my my hometown because it's cozy, European-like, and there is a lot of nature.
That's great to hear. And could you introduce yourself, what you do in a few words?
I'm the volunteer at the Ukrainian Association in Finland. I organize events and demonstrations in support of Ukraine. We started doing it even before the invasion in 2021. I'm a producer of Satakieli media, that's the media for immigrant communities in Finland, and a journalist.
Great, thank you for being here. And next is Svitlana Ryabova. I understand you are also a journalist. What is your home place or favorite place?
My home city is Kharkov, and my maybe best city for me, I think it's Kyiv and Kharkov, both of the city, because half of my life I spent in Kharkov, and maybe more than 15 years I has been living in Kyiv.
And who are you? What do you do?
I'm a journalist. I was working in Ukraine in journalism more than 20 years. And after the full invasion, I moved to Finland. And there I continue my journalism here. I try to write about Ukrainians, about their problems there.
Very good to have so many colleagues here. And also we have some Finnish journalists here also in their free time, I must add. So thank you for your interest. Maria Kostiainen, I know that you have come from the eastern flank, from Lappeenranta.
Yes, today I'm very happy to be representing the eastern part of Ukrainians in Finland. Actually I am the head of the Association of Ukrainians in the area of Lappeenranta, and which also includes few smaller places next to our city.
So you like living in the eastern parts, both in Ukraine and in Finland?
I think that I come from Kyiv originally, from Ukraine, but I have to say that the Finnish city, if I had to choose, it would definitely be Tampere.
Okay, who agrees with that? Tampere is a wonderful place, of course, yes. And Kristina, what about you?
So my home city is Kyiv. I'm from Kyiv, and I would like to say that I'm a refugee, and I have been living in Finland for 3 years, and I'm proud that I have been working as a volunteer. So first of all, I'm a volunteer, and after that, I am a chairperson of Ukrainatalo Association, and I am a Ukrainian language teacher, English language teacher, and now I'm working at Tredu, Tampere College. So, and there I have a position as a vocational instructor. So that's a little bit about me. And sorry for that sound, because there is a club, and probably they want to share their beautiful music. So sorry for that.
So we are going to sing after all.
Exactly.
You can already hear the drums. Okay, so let's jump right into the question. It is struggles and threats. I mean, we are not going to talk about anything positive now, how great it is in Finland, but rather about the problems at hand, because, of course, what we know is that about 80,000 Ukrainians came to Finland in general, and there is no statistics about how many of you are actually here because of the Schengen borders and because there is no statistics about people who come and go. But it is a big number of people, and of course there are so many different life stories, personalities, opinions. What would you, each of you now, name as the most serious struggle right now in the lives of Ukrainians in Finland? And let's go around.
Well, I would say maintaining Ukrainian identity would be one. Maybe for the refugees who came, it's not number one because they have their needs, basic needs to cover and to integrate first. But for those who've been living in Finland for a longer time, we see that there is a big tendency of Russification of Ukrainians being exposed to Russian influences in Finland because Russians have very developed infrastructure, since it's the minority that have been living in Finland for a long time. They have a lot of organizations to which Ukrainians sometimes forced to join because there are no other options in some regions, for example, in the east of Finland. And in these conditions, maintaining this Ukrainianness, Ukrainian language, Ukrainian identity, we have to, how it would sound, but we still need to struggle for it even in Finland.
So you are talking about, for example, a situation when Ukrainian people come to Finland and then they would be grouped together with various other speakers of Russian language.
Yes, basically yes. The thing is that due to the fact that we still don't have a very organized system of Ukrainian civil society organization, although it's been developing, but Russian organizations dominate in this area. It's different cultural clubs for children, activities, it's help for the refugees, informational consulting, and so on and so on.
So not all of the Russian organizations have been closed or are running out of money?
No, of course not. Some of them that have been exposed, like, for example, this Russian Venäjän Talo in Helsinki, or SVS, Suomi Venäjän Seura, or some others that have been exposed their connections to Russian government. They lost the support, the grants, but the other ones, there are a lot of them that were for decades promoting Russian culture, Russian narratives, who have been developed in close cooperation with Russian state, I would say. When the invasion came, they just we say перевзулися in Ukrainian, like militarily change the boots, but which means that
we say kääntää takkinsa, turn the coat around. Huh?
Yes, and so they, in fear of losing those grants, support from the society, financial support from municipalities, for example, a lot of them just placed "нет войне" and started to accommodate Ukrainians, started to help Ukrainians. But the question is did they really change the system? Could the society, the environment in which Russian narratives have been boiling for so long, have they changed? And we see again, for example, this promotion of using of Russian language among the Ukrainians. Again, this narrative about Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians together, or something like that. So there is a big question about those organizations.
Let's get back to this by all means and have more examples of this, but let's go to Svetlana Ryabova now. Which struggle would you pick?
I have some points. I agree with Nadia that there is a lack of Ukrainian environment infrastructure for Ukrainian children, but I want to describe as a portrait of Ukrainian refugees, because the majority of Ukrainian refugees are women with children. Men of military age are not allowed to leave Ukraine, so families are separated. Men stay behind to fight, while women and children must start a new life in a foreign country. This makes them highly vulnerable to manipulation, propaganda, scammers, and criminals. Most refugees come from eastern and southern part of Ukraine, regions where Russian was dominant language for many years, so creates additional challenges. I agree with Nadia about lack of Ukrainian infrastructure for Ukrainian children. And I know, and I wrote article about Ukrainian children who speaks Russian in Finland, but they are from Ukrainian language families, but they use Russian language as a lingua franca. And when they return to Ukraine, our schools and institutes teach in Ukrainian, and their integration will be very difficult, I think. They will bring with them Russian language, and what we will do with this. We try to protect our culture, but then a lot of Ukrainian children come back. And what we will do with this in Ukraine, because not only about Finland, in other countries, the same situation.
I see, yes. This is a matter of identity, definitely in practical level, because even in Finland and in other European countries, in some places, there would be some sort of an infrastructure in Russian language and none whatsoever in Ukrainian. And so that's why we need to learn Ukrainian, and we need to educate Ukrainian, Finnish, Ukrainian English translators and interpreters and specialists, right? That's a very concrete matter, and that's why I was talking about the universities, and very important to understand that this is not, it's not going to go on forever that Ukrainians are supposed to speak in Russian, right?
Yeah.
Because most Ukrainians who may have spoken in Russian before in their daily lives are transferring into Ukrainian more and more. So I think this is also a process that is going on inside Ukraine, this making Ukrainian identity stronger.
Of course.
So we should not participate here to work against it.
Yeah.
So let's get back to this also as we have more time. But Maria, what would you name as your point number one?
In my opinion, I do really strongly agree with what Svetlana and Nadia had to say about the identity, and it's a very large discussion on itself about the identity and about the identity of Ukrainians, for example, when they do leave and when they have a chance to live in Ukraine. Again, when we think about what kind of process do they undergo here in Finland, and taking into account what kind of services are provided and are available, and what kind of infrastructure is already is created for them, and where they find themselves. Definitely, it's easy if the family did choose or they had Russian as their language. It's easy to upkeep it. For example, in our region in the eastern Finland, it's very easy. The infrastructure there is perfect.
You can actually get by in Russian and get some people to talk to, and then you exactly, have no incentive.
You can solve any kind of question there, and the problem that I see in here is not the language itself, but the bubble, the information bubble, this propaganda bubble that people find themselves in, and that they might not recognize also. They might not be at that point, at the point of their vulnerability, be able to double check all the facts, or to so they get under the influence of this propaganda. Because we can see the Kultura Foundation, for example, their reports on how Russian-speaking population trusts or doesn't really trust the media in Finland. So that's, for me, it's a very, very big sign of a high risk of people getting under the influence of the propaganda.
Yes.
In the language that they choose. Of course, the other thing is that they, in our area, they really do not have a possibility to choose Ukrainian. That's another big problem, and this is one of the risks that I would really like to draw attention. That it's not only up to Ukrainians, or not only up to whichever language they would choose, but it's also a big matter of understanding by the decision makers, by the people on those positions who provide the services. It's also for them, it's an important thing to understand and to really get into the matter and to try to figure out and to try to understand, and if they make those decisions, that what are they based on? Whose opinions and whose voices they are listening to when making those decisions.
It would be interesting to find out about some actual situations that people find themselves in, for example, in Lappeenranta. Do you have some practical examples of how people are lumped into some Russian group? Or
I have example, for example, about children. This is, I guess, the most important thing for us nowadays.
Yeah.
That those children really who they don't speak Russian, they don't understand it, and then when they are in the class, in the school, for example, and there's a Russian-speaking helper, assistant, who is explaining things in Russian, and then getting very furious about this person, this child, not understanding and not even believing the child that he doesn't understand. So those are very comic situations, but then, like, parents are they cannot do anything. It's those are very complicated issues, but they are very big, and unfortunately they don't get the attention they need by the school, by the municipality, and by the parents also, because they just don't have strength to fight everything in their daily life.
I believe actually that if there are any people who are decision makers on a local level, or opinion leaders, that probably our big message today would be that you have to understand the difference between Ukrainians and Russians, and to create, to facilitate the conditions where Ukrainian identity can be fostered and developed in Finland, and not to cause any setbacks, even if it seems like a good idea because you already have the Russian-speaking personnel, or you already know how to work that field, but it is a different field. After all, this is, I think it was President Kuchma's book already was that Ukraine is not Russia. So to understand this in the first place, and in the second place to understand, as I see it, is that the war is not about territory. I mean, the war is about territory, but it is about the people's identity, minds, rights to their culture and identity and language and so on and so on and so forth.
And if I still may add one point that I would really like us to hear and to really listen to it, is that there's always in whatever we do, in whatever decisions we make or whatever we choose, that there's an easy way and then there's a right way. And then it's up to us always to think, which one do we want to choose? Do we go the easy way because, you know, it's easy?
Yeah.
Or we do take this right way, we dig into the matter, we understand the question, we understand the points of view, and we make, based on that, we make the decisions how we move forward.
And of course there are Russians who are civilized people as well, and sometimes understanding to the Ukrainian causes, but still it is not the same point of view, not the same experience historically, nationally. So there is a, how to say this, but even if someone who is totally Russian is speaking good things about Ukraine, the angle might still be false.
The angle and the perspectives, and also some other messages and some other, for example, we also have a lot of local Russians. They do help. They help. They come. They bring some clothes. They sincerely want to be useful to Ukrainians. But then, in my opinion, I see at this point the only help or responsibility of Russian people at this point is to go outside and to be loudly against this invasion, against the war, to have their opinion and to say it out loud, to stop this war, to stop what their country is doing, to take the responsibility. This is the real action that I would expect from Russian people at this point, and from the beginning of the invasion. But unfortunately, what do we get? We get a few winter jackets and a pair of skates, and then on public we hear the announcements that Ukraine shouldn't get any weapons, Ukraine shouldn't get any ammunition because it's against peace.
Yes, you mentioned this sign, which I believe I saw. You mentioned also this Finland-Russia association, and they would then, in the first days of the full-scale war, put out a sign on their door in Helsinki saying "Niet vainie." So, no to war. But no to war doesn't really say anything morally about the whole issue. And I guess if we go slightly back to Trump, him saying peace also doesn't say morally anything about the issue. Who is right, who is wrong. So it is the same problem all over again. But let's go for a while to Christina and your main points for the discussion, the struggle of Ukrainians. You've been watching the youth.
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to say that I strongly agree with the experts. So the question of Ukrainian language is very urgent. It's very urgent. But also I would like to add, so since I've been working with young people, aged 16, from 16 to 20, I would say. So, and I'm very worried about their psychological condition and state. Because what I have seen that our young people, our future, yes, so our Ukrainians. Nowadays, probably they feel safe here in Finland, but they are absolutely demotivated. They do not know what to do in the future. They do not know what is their future profession, for example. And what I have noticed, these are, I would say, very empty sight in their eyes. So they won't go home. And despite the great conditions here in Finland, they miss their home, and I would say they need more support from Finland, probably from some social organizations. So, and one of the most, I would say, terrible things for me, a lot of kids, because they are teenagers, they need families, and lots of kids, they are here and they are living in ryhmäkodit, so it's like, I don't know, hostels or something like that, and they are living without families. So their families are in Ukraine, and probably they wanted to save, to protect their kids, but they feel lonely and they feel they are scared, despite the fact that they are in a safe place. So I would say that this is problem number one, this vulnerable category, young people here in
First of all, there is a war, which is a horrible thing to follow. I mean, the kids are aware of everything that is happening everywhere. And there are so many things that are against our understanding of right and wrong, and all of this must shake their world view. But then there must be also the question, where is home? Whether you're going to stay in Finland for years to come, or you're going to move back to Ukraine. If back to Ukraine, whether it's the same old part of Ukraine or some other city. How much is this a factor in this anxiety?
So, for example, I have been teaching one group, and there were 8 Ukrainians. One girl is from Mariupol, and she's smiling, she's laughing, and at the same time she says, I don't know what to do. So my grandparents, they are there, so in Mariupol, but I'm here, and I don't know what should I do tomorrow. So maybe I will study, maybe I will die, who knows. And this psychological condition is terrible. And for example, I had 2 boys in my group. They want to come back to Ukraine and to protect their home. So they want to serve at the army. But of course, their parents have made different decisions. And those kids, they are absolutely lost. They don't know what's next. And I would say this is a very tragedy.
Tragic.
Yes.
So one thing as a journalist that you often come to see is that the Finnish social security system, or the children's services, are protecting the identities of everybody so ferociously that it's almost impossible to talk about these issues publicly at all. And then it's difficult to discuss, for example, a problem of parentless Ukrainian children who are, it seems they are in Finland, and what is their situation? It is impossible probably to write a story in a newspaper because you don't know who the people are, and if you ask, they don't tell you because it is a secret. So can you tell me more about these children who are without their parents?
Okay, so probably One example is one boy. He is originally from Mykolaiv region, and now he's suffering so much because his two best friends, they have decided to go to army. And this boy, he's skipping the lessons, he doesn't do his homework, and then, very smart boy, by the way. And when I, as a teacher, when I start like, what's going on, how can I help, and so on, he is very, very, like, in a very straight way, he says, Kristina, my two best friends, they are almost serving in the army. I don't sleep. I don't do anything. I don't want to do this homework. I don't want to study. I want to be there with my friends, with whom I had been playing chess, with whom I wanted to study at some kind of Mykolaiv college or something. So, and when he says that, I see that he doesn't need any protection. He doesn't need any, I don't know, any good conditions of living here in Finland. So he wants his normal life. He wants his childhood, but there, at home, not here. So, and this is, for me as a mother, it's terrible. It's terrible, and I have been discussing this question with my colleagues, and we are thinking about possibility to make something like, I don't know how does it sound in English, but it's like protective family or a volunteer family or something.
Yeah.
So, for example, some Finnish family or Ukrainian family here in Finland, which can take care of these kids. So, for example, to show what is like a good weekend, what is like a good time with their parents, yeah, because kids are, they are left and they are living for themselves.
I see. So this is a good question then. What can we do as the Finnish society, or us who are opinion makers or discussing with colleagues or who have some sort of influence? But let's go back to the identity question and the Russian problem. Nadia Fedorova, you started off the round with this. How would you say the Ukrainian people, I mean, there are, in addition to Russian and so-called Russian speakers, there are other nationalities in Finland. How are Ukrainians different? How are Ukrainians in a different position? And do they get this treatment of understanding the specific situation of Ukrainians?
The Ukrainian diaspora in Finland formed under other circumstances than other diasporas, and Russian diaspora, Estonian diaspora, and others. So.
And the diaspora formed very quickly.
Very quickly, within
mainly in
a couple of years, and so we have completely different history of this. I think that when it's evolving, when people are coming gradually, and the diaspora is growing gradually, it like has the time to develop social network, infrastructure, civil organizations helping people, activities for kids, and all the stuff needed to maintain national identity in the diaspora in the foreign country. But in Ukraine, it happened as an explosion. Tens of thousands of people came at once. And so, and they came in completely different state of mind. They came traumatized by the war. Some of them have witnessed the horrors of occupation. Some of them have been have seen shelling, have seen terrible things. So
and sometimes not just seen but also experienced.
Yes. And so we have completely different situation, and it is a bit well, extraordinary, I would say. So if we what the other part of the question was like to compare with the other communities, what I see that our mind is trying to unite to put under one stereotype. It's easier for Finnish to see Ukrainians as part of, let's say, Russian world still. And I often see that we are united as those Eastern Europeans or under this Russians, Ukrainians and Belarusians. I see it in the formulations of different programs. For example, there was some grant call for Ukrainian, Russian and Belarusian journalists who suffered from the war. But sorry, let's not just put the comma. It's not the same thing. There are Ukrainians who are suffering from war, and then there are Russians who are a part of this aggression. So let's not put a comma between us.
We can agree that all of them are suffering, but in very different ways, probably. So it's hello, if you are watching, the Soviet Union already fell down 35 years ago. And for the last 11 years, and now for the last 3 years and 6 days, there has been this war, if you've heard about it, about Ukraine. So it's interesting that I'm sure that everyone in Finland has heard about the war in Ukraine and how Russia started it and what atrocities happened and about the war crimes, more or less. But then when you go to your workplace, you still think about the former Soviet Union. Hello, there is no such country in the world which has the name of former Soviet Union. It's a very different story. So is it a different kind of level of consciousness that you follow the news about the war, but then you still put together the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Belarusian?
I don't know.
I don't know how it works. But if it hasn't crossed your mind, then you can just start thinking about it and actually realize the Ukrainian point of view. I don't think it's all that hard to understand. But can you go on? You are the advocacy coordinator for Ukrainian Association in Finland. So you also see a lot of cases of people, right? Being the advocate. So can you share some of the stories that you have come across that really touched you?
Well, it's not like advocacy in a broader meaning. Advocacy to...
You're not a lawyer.
I'm
Thank
not.
goodness, okay.
It's in broader meaning, as I said, advocacy in support of Ukraine to raise people's awareness of what's happening in Ukraine and to activate some actions for Ukrainians in Finland, some support for Ukrainians in Finland and for Ukraine as a country. And as for the stories, I would say that there's
the bar
the beautiful
downstairs is playing rock and roll, so
the beautiful soundtrack.
that is the soundtrack of our lives here in Ukraina Talo.
Something heroic would be
People
good.
rocking in the free world comes to mind. Okay, but let's listen to you now and concentrate.
But I would say one case that's was a part of Ukrainian Association initiative. It's when there was a big mobilization campaign in Russia, and a lot of Russians started to flee Russia, not from war, from mobilization. And they started to apply for political asylum. And as you know, it takes time. It takes about like 6 months or even more time to get this,
to process.
to process. Thank you. This application, and so Finland's authorities started to put those people together with Ukrainians.
Even in the living conditions, in the first,
in those
first
refugee
weeks.
centers, in the reception centers. So the victims met.
So they changed the decision in the end after Ukrainian advocates.
Yes, of course, Ukrainian Association at that time we were all shocked about that when we started to receive messages from people that this is happening in all over Finland. Then Ukrainian Association made an open letter, and this was changed.
Yes.
So that's the part. That's like one of the cases.
So that time, Migri, the organization for migrants processing in Finland, understood when they heard about this. Then they finally understood. But it would be something that you could actually understand in the first place directly, right? So, can you, any of you who want to chime in, can you explain more about the situations in life nowadays about Russians with Ukrainians, why they don't really mix, and why, in what kind of situations are Ukrainians put under the label of something Russian speaking or Russian this or that? And also about the organizations. You have to explain more about the funding that goes to the Russian organizations and how it is away from the Ukrainian organizations. Please be as concrete as possible so that our people who don't deal with these issues daily, that they would understand.
I think it's also, I would like to continue a little bit what Nadia mentioned about simplifying things. You know, when we can just put people as Russian speakers, you know, regardless of what is the country of their origin, and that makes things again simple and easy. But that leads us to very unwanted consequences. And
by the way, when you mentioned Kultura Foundation made this survey for Russian speakers, was it also sent to Ukrainians or not?
Well, this is one of the things that they chose from this Digiväestötietovirasto, the web.
Yeah.
They
this
chose
big
the
name in Finland, blah blah blah. Nobody remembers it, but it is the, you know, it used to be called the magistrate.
Agency, you know? Yes. So basically they selected the respondents by the language, and regardless of the origin, and this is how it's counted.
So it is very important which language you mark down in your own information to be registered.
Extremely important, and then so this way the respondents were selected, and then there is some clarification also in some description of the background of the respondents and which countries or which what is the nationality of the respondent.
Okay, so this is one that the statistics need to be made clear.
I want to add, it's quite interesting because when you put your application in DVV, you can choose only one language. And Ukrainians usually use Russian because they see how developed Russian language infrastructure. It's like circle, you know. They choose.
And it's possible that you are able to get, for example, interpretation services in Russian, but very rarely in Ukrainian because there are no interpreters of Ukrainian. So that might mix some people's minds up as well if they would want to have at least some sort of service.
Maybe. No.
But just go ahead, please.
And they see possibility to find a job, for example, with Russian language. That's why they can put as a Russian language as a native, because 98% of Ukrainians speaks both and understand both language.
Yes.
And maybe 50% it's said it was surveys in Ukraine. It's quite fresh surveys, and Ukrainian researchers shows that 50% Ukrainians choose Ukrainian as a native, and 30% choose both native language, Russian and Ukrainians.
Sure, okay. And it is, yeah, well, but what other examples are there about this Russia being a problem in Finland in everyday life?
Well, I would continue with the what kind of like services, for example, we get. This is the real problem that people have to choose. They are put in the situation that they have to choose the language, And now, actually, Ukrainians are in that position that they have to choose between even 3 languages now, because even if they consciously would really want to switch to Ukrainian now, if they had Russian as their main language or the focus language, they would have to put a lot of effort in that, especially when they don't have the surrounding for in the outside of their home, when they don't have the conditions, when there's no other services in Ukrainian. But there's also now there's this Finnish language that they really have to learn now. So there's a lot of like a really huge amount of pressure. And before that, I have to say that this again the language matter, it's always brought up to us, but by the in the communications with the representative of the Russian-speaking organizations or authorities or bodies or colleagues, and the very interesting questions that when we presented our organization to the municipality and we talked about what we do and what we intend to do, and that we would really love to create the Ukrainian language surrounding for people who live in here. And in our thoughts, we didn't specify that never like anywhere, but in our opinion, it's for anyone who is interested in Ukrainian language. So it can be anyone, and we do have a lot of Finnish people also joining us. But the interesting thing that the conclusion that the employees of the municipality made, that Russian-speaking Ukrainians are not welcomed to our activities. So, okay, we choose to speak Ukrainian because we love Ukrainian, and because we want to upkeep it, and we want to provide the opportunity for people to use it, no matter who. No matter what language you speak, you can speak Chinese at your home if you want.
I'm certain that the issue and the whole situation of language usage in Ukraine, I mean, it should be talked about more. It should be talked in the university, in the media, and not just that, but I think the whole complexity of Ukraine and the society and the different nationalities there, and it's not just about the language, but of course about understanding Ukraine as a country and as a history and as a nation. So I think we should really have a lecture series for that, which is not going to take place today, but what is going to take place now is that you can have some brief questions, as I promised, if you'd like. So if anyone would have a question for our panelists, please just raise your hand. Or otherwise, I will just take it back to the basics. Yeah, okay. Now it's your time. You wanted to ask about. Yeah, you want, but Solomia Homa is going to send you an email about Germany and Europe. But would you like to come up and ask your question here, please?
Yeah, thank you for very interesting and impressive stories. My question would be, because I'm a German and I've been living here for 30 years, and even, there's not so big difference between Finland and Germany, but you can imagine there are cultural problems, and also I have to deal, today in the afternoon I called to Digivirasto and police for some official things, but yeah, so you always have to deal these things when you are, when you have double citizenship or not the citizenship. But my question would be, because always when I have to deal with these things, I think also, okay, I try to be polite, explain my cause. And then I think flexibility, this would be a really a key for a thing that all the bureaucrats, they would be just more flexible and look at things also from a human perspective.
I understand.
I know there are laws, they have to obey the laws.
What is the question
and the
then?
question is, if what is you, so from my experience is flexibility, but what is your, maybe, what would you suggest, what should be done with the bureaucracy, with the municipalities, what could they do more?
So how much is bureaucracy and not flexibility in bureaucracy a problem? Because of course in Finland there are ways how you do things, and sometimes it's just that you have laws and you want to, everything works according to the laws. And sometimes I notice, for example, I'm in the group of Ukrainians in Finland, and sometimes I just notice that this question is just here because the person doesn't understand how the laws work in Finland. But sometimes the bureaucrat really does not understand how the Ukrainians' mind works. Yeah. And Ukrainians are really well known for your smartness and good imagination and how to do things effectively and quickly. So what would be your answer about the bureaucracy thing? Flexibility.
There are two.
It's a German asking, you know.
Okay, there are two opinions what bureaucracy for Ukrainians. For example, in my country, bureaucracy is always corruption. It's not something too long, like, for example, in Finland, when there are a lot of organizations check something and it's too long. And Ukrainians don't like bureaucracy because of corruption, not because it's too long. That's why maybe I can't give you full explanation what I feel when I see bureaucracy in Finland. As for me, it's not bad. I know that it protects my rights. That's why it's good for me. But maybe about flexibility, a lot of people from Ukraine, a lot of refugees has got depression after the war. But in our culture, in our mentality, we are not ready to speak about it. There is stigma in our society. We usually don't discuss depression. It means like, you are a lazy person, go and work. We don't have any medication. And when these people came to Finland, it is other country, foreign language. They need support. And can you imagine, for example, women with 2 children who are living in a small city where, for example, all shops and markets for a long time. It is very difficult for her, and she also has depression. We are not flexibility, that's why. Maybe I give you.
I meant also the flexibility of the other side. So the bureaucracy. Could you concretely?
Yeah, should the officials just sometimes say that, hey, you are Ukrainians, you are in this strange position that nobody else has because your country was attacked, so let's just skip some things and let's make everything work faster.
In Ukraine?
In Finland.
In Finland.
Now we are begging you to criticize Finland now. If you are you able to say anything negative about Finland?
We are quite flexible. I know that Ukraine always try to fast way to solve the problem.
Yeah, and this is the happiest country on the planet. It's such an inside joke, you know. It's everyone complaining about Finland all the time.
Well, I would really love to put just few words to say on this behalf. I think that Finland has been extremely flexible, actually. Finland has provided so many services beyond what we could even expect, or what Ukrainians could even expect, and then a really, really big thank you to Finland for that. And
I don't think we could even expect that ourselves. But
well, in many ways you could really see that.
Yeah, but really, it's been said many times and many ways, but really most Finns, they saw themselves in the Ukrainian position.
And we actually
and still do.
I
still
think
do, and the Finnish policy has not changed because of Trump.
we are very privileged to be as Ukrainians in Finland. I think there are a lot of points to that too. But also I think that it's very important.
But the criticism part, yeah.
Yeah, the criticism part, that it's very important for Ukrainians also to respect and to understand the rules and the ways that work in this country where they are now at this moment. I think that this is crucial. If we demand respect to our land, to our rules, our ways, then we should be also respecting the rules, the ways of the country we are at the moment. So no criticism.
And it's also we're coming back to informing. We talked a lot about informing you Finns about how we feel about our struggles, and the same Finland can be better at informing Ukrainians how things work in Finland.
I must say that the full-scale war began on the 24th of February, and the first date when an editor-in-chief of certain Finnish newspapers, I'm not going to name which one because it is not important, but the first time I was told that it was very good that you did such a great job covering the Ukraine war, but now it's time to move on to other things, you know. And I think this was on the 9th of March 2022. So it is really important to keep going, to write the stories, even if it seems that this war has been going on forever. And that is why I would recommend for everybody here who can understand English the wonderful podcast, not from Finland, but from the Telegraph, Ukraine, the latest. For 3 years I've been listening to that every evening before going to sleep. And actually now the English reporters, they have also got Stuchny intellect, and it can be also listened to in Ukrainian and even in Russian. So there are now 3 versions of that, and I think it's very important. So you can find that wherever you get your podcasts. My criticism, of course, would be that the liveliness of people depend on 3 very concrete things, and they are place of work, living, and the school for children or kindergarten. So we haven't really talked about this, but the other night I was in Ruovesi, a small Finnish place, and we had a discussion about the livelihood, how to make it a livelier place. And I think these were the 3 components, and I think the same is probably true with Ukrainians as well. Vitaly,
yeah, I just want to
time to beat the kavu.
Before I time everybody and be the annoying moderating guy, I want to actually
kellokalle in Finnish.
I want to actually answer the question on my behalf. What I think would be really cool, what Finland can do bureaucratically. So we've heard a lot here, and I actually very much agree. Like, Ukrainians are kind of generally, let's say, tough people. They don't really ask for help, and we are not that kind of open of a society yet, but it's a very, very lively process right now. So, and when Ukrainians don't ask for help, they also very seldom ask for psychological help. And right now, psychological help is like very important thing under the immense amount of stress every single Ukrainian goes through. And in Finland, it's very, very difficult to actually get professional psychological help in Ukrainian language, mostly because Finland does not recognize Ukrainian psychologists. And otherwise, you would have to go through like the interpretation and translation. It's
Would
not the
some
same
people
thing.
then use online services from Ukraine?
Yes, and they have to pay for it, and it's very expensive. And usually people don't have this money to actually pay for psychological help, and Kela does not reimburse the psychological help by Ukrainian professionals. So that would be actually a really cool thing to do, to actually somehow ease up the process of legalizing.
And it should be very understandable that this is one of those moments where Ukrainians are different, and I know Ukrainians, you are strong. Every Ukrainian I know is a strong person, but even a strong person sometimes may need some help, And this is because of the overwhelming circumstances. It's not because of weakness. So let's make this a policy point. Let's write it on the blackboard and whatever, and talk about it. And now we are going to have a coffee break. I see some wonderful cakes there. And let's get back as soon as we can, so we have maximum amount of time for the last panel, which is going to be about Ukrainian culture and language.
Please enjoy some coffee. Please enjoy some sweets. You have like 30 seconds, but before you go, please a round of applause for our wonderful panelists.
Thank you all so much.
And see you in 5
Thanks
minutes.
for the work that you do for Ukrainians and at the same time for our society.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's continue with our third panel today, which hopefully will be a bit more bright, but we'll see, because this is also a very not only interesting but also a sensitive topic today. I would ask our panelists to their seats. And I will let Matti take it over from here. Thank you. Please enjoy.
Thank you very much, Vitali, and thank you for being here to all of you. It is a great opportunity for me to meet so many Ukrainians and so many Finns who are interested in the cause of the Ukrainians and our common cause. So thank you for being here, and thank you for watching this recording or this live stream from Ukraina Talo in Tampere. And thank you for our third panel. We are now going to continue on the topic of Ukrainian culture in Finland. And I'm glad it is a topic. I mean, there were many years when Ukrainian culture in Finland really was not a headline at all, or almost, just for a very small group of Ukrainians and their friends, I guess. But at least now, at least here, it is a headline, and I have the honor to welcome three people who have done very much work in this field. And first is Natalia Terämäe, who is a Ukrainian journalist, writer, culture journalist, I would say, cultural coordinator, film mogul. I know you do a lot, so can you introduce yourself and which point would you raise for us about Ukrainian culture? It's gonna be on. I mean, these guys are really, they could be Ukrainians. They are so
Yes.
good.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this panel, to this event. I can make a joke that culture always goes last. I'm a journalist, and usually in the printed media, the last pages in online media, like somewhere at the very back about culture, but we don't realize how important and strong culture is. However, it is called soft power, but it is a very strong power. And today is a very significant day, actually, 28th of November. This is Kalevalan Päivä Day, Day of the Finnish culture. And I said? November. February.
Oh, February, November.
February, yeah. You know what day is today.
Time goes by so quickly. Can I make a slight correction, though, to how we were supposed to begin? I was going to ask you, what is your favorite place or your home place in Ukraine?
Of course, Kyiv.
Kyiv. Okay, let's go on. Kyiv is the home?
Yes, and the capital and everything.
And everything.
And everything, because in Kyiv we have, it's a core of the Ukrainian, actually, history. When we go back to medieval times, we have the architectural sites of the 11th century, and it's very important for us. Actually, that heritage that Russia tries to steal and represent as a Russian, but we are still fighting for that as well. Also, who's following the news? And what's going on in Washington right now? The huge.
Who is following the news as we speak on their mobile phone? Okay, how's it going?
Oh my gosh, I feel like very high adrenaline in my blood because Zelensky is arguing with Trump.
And Ukraine's fate is once again being decided.
And it's and it's also interesting to see the comments, like because it's not diplomatic, he can't talk with the American president that way. However, it's also it refers to cultures for me to our topic that we shouldn't be politically correct. It's not the time to pretend that things are okay and we can avoid something just by believing that we, people of the 21st century, we are educated and cultured and it won't happen to us. You are asking about being prepared to the war. So my question, who knows how to apply tourniquet?
To Bellingcat?
Tourniquet.
Oh, tourniquet.
How to stop massive bleeding? Who knows how to load a rifle?
Surprisingly, many people here know how to load a rifle. That's
1/3. But majority of the audience, you know where to move. It doesn't mean that you will use that, but it's good to be, and this is about preparedness, to be prepared. What I also wanna...
Should we introduce the other speakers before, and then you can continue?
I just wanted, actually, Trump, as usual, spoiled everything.
Yeah, I mean, everything is not all right. Everything is very much messed up in the world, and under Trump.
And he messed up my presentation as well. But
let's blame it on the Trump.
Tonight we got the very sad and tragical news in Ukraine that one of the Ukrainian soldiers died, and it's a very significant family for Ukraine, and I guess like everybody was following that story about Roman Ratushny, who was killed in June 2022 in the battlefield fighting against Russians. And last night, the second son of Svetlana Povalyeva, Ukrainian poet, actually, was also killed on the battlefield. And all country is mourning right now in Ukraine, and I want to ask you to honor the memory of Roman and Vasil by the minute of silence.
Minutu mовчання for the heroes.
Kiitos.
So let's introduce our next panelist. It is Irina Horkun, Ukrainian musician, cultural coordinator of Ukrainian Association in Finland for the last few years. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much.
Where are you from in Ukraine?
I'm like everyone from Kiev, or almost everyone.
Okay.
Yes. So
what
Kiev.
What is the best part of being from Kiev?
You know, walking around the city. This is like, I think, well, Finland is actually my third country that I'm living in. And before I was living in Switzerland, and I always missed, you know, those walks. And I think it's always connected to the places that, you know, kind of bring your childhood memories. So this is like, for me, you know, all these places that I was, you know, having great time as a child or, you know, as growing up. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we have some friends who are in Kiev tonight, so greetings to you. You have been listening to all of this, the Ukrainian culture for you, and what is the situation with it in Finland now?
Well, I can't say that there is one particular situation. I think the Ukrainian subject have been growing during the past few years. So this is a very positive situation. You know, as I came to Finland, actually the first town was for me Tampere. So I'm almost like at home. I love the city. But during my first years as a as a professional musician and as a starting researcher, I looked at the grant situation, the funding situation, and I was quite disappointed to see that so many Russian team projects were very strongly supported. So for this time, as a Ukrainian person, as a Ukrainian representative and artist, you had very little chance to be kind of supported because there was no point. There was very little kind of, you know, need and request for that. So I'm in a way, it's for a very sad reason that now it's more in focus and it gets a lot of attention right now. But there is also a good side of it that now everything or a lot of projects connected to Ukraine are supported. And this is a great thing. So I'm very grateful for that.
Many people have said that if there was something positive out of the war time situation, then at least it has focused some more attention towards Ukrainian culture.
Exactly, and I think, well, I hope it's okay if I'm taking a bit more time to talk, but I think now, you know, my part as a Ukrainian musician and researcher and cultural coordinator is to kind of bring clarity to this stage, you know, like artistic music, whatever stage that we have, and say that, well, actually, Ukrainian culture is very, very rich, and it's very, you know, wide, and the level of Ukrainian people, the artists, are very high, you know, it's very high.
It's very deeply rooted in the Ukrainian history, which is an organic part of history of Europe.
It's a very long subject. Yeah. We have so little time, but I wish...
What is the last thing that you have coordinated in your job as culture coordinator?
Oh, God.
Just mention a concert or...
Yeah, a concert, a Christmas concert that we had at the church in the Rock on 22nd of December, I think.
But there have been quite many, and I've been also taking part in quite many great occasions, and I hope you have too. And every time there is a concert, every time there is anything Ukrainian, it is a personal thing. It is a show of solidarity to go there, and you're going to enjoy it very much. So
I I want to comment that it's always good to really discover who is behind those things, because it's very important to know who organizes this, because a lot of people, as it's been already discussed, you know, they taking advantage of this, and then they're using Ukrainian team as a way to get money, and they don't mean that.
So but you should take a deep look at who is organizing, and
it would be wise.
One thing also why we are here having this Voice of Ukrainians evening tonight, it's that it's very important to understand that the people you are talking with actually are Ukrainians and not fake Ukrainians or someone who is trying to hijack the Ukrainian voice. And this is a crazy thing to say, but all of us who have been working in connections to do with Russia, then you understand that there are always fake personalities, and that is probably why we had this registration, to at least know who is coming today. And so you should always be a little bit more cautious, because there are people who might look like the real thing, but they aren't. So, but next one to introduce is actually someone I meet very regularly because she's my teacher of Ukrainian language in the Tampere Open University. And I think that that is a reason to celebrate. Wait for next year, I will be even more fluent in Ukrainian, I promise. Maria Zhyhurt, you have first-hand experience about the development of Ukrainian teaching in Finland. So can you tell us a little bit about your story, how you came to teach at so many levels of Ukrainian language courses in Tampere Open University? I mean, it must have been hard in the beginning.
Hello, good evening to everyone. Thank you for asking me to come. So my name is Maria Zhyhurt, and I would like to answer your first question. What is my favorite part in Ukraine?
Oh, I start forgetting.
I would like to answer the Ukrainian diversity. And during my life, I have been traveling through the Ukraine because I was born in Crimea. And I really remember the huge, like the seashore steps in Crimea. But I lived on the west of Ukraine in Khmelnytsky region. And Khmelnytsky region, it is the part with hills and trees. And my favorite part of Ukraine, I was traveling from the Khmelnytsky to Crimea a lot during my childhood because my mom lived in Khmelnytsky and dad lived in Crimea. So when you go to the train and you see the hills and trees, and it takes one day, 24 hours, to go to Crimea. And when you get up in the morning, you see the seashore of the steppes. So the diversity is the favorite part of Ukraine.
Це Україна.
Так. So, I'm a teacher, and I was very, very sad when I went to the university in Kamyanets-Podilsky, and I couldn't be like only English language teacher. I succeed to be a student of Ukrainian language part and then a bit of English. And that plays a huge difference in my life after almost 15 years. So when I came to Finland in March 2022 with 2 kids. I started to teach English because I have been teaching English almost all my life to Ukrainians in Vastono-Tokeskos. And that was the main part of my life and the thing which helped me a lot to be useful, to do what you can. And after that, when I started meeting people and volunteers and Ukrainians of Tampere, I totally remember Vitaly Zabolotsky. I met him in police station. And he said, "We need you."
That's what happens sometimes in the police station.
And that was Ukrainian.
You know the experience, don't you?
Yeah. So, teaching English. And after that, I met a lot of good volunteers and people, and they said, "Hey, do you teach only English?" I said, "No, I can teach Ukrainian. I'm a professional there. There is my diploma." And I I applied to Sampola to Ivanopisto, and my first course was Ukrainian culture. I talked to Finns about Ukrainian culture. And after that, the people from Ivanopisto said, "Can you teach Ukrainian for us?" "Yes, I can." The people from Tampere University, Yliopisto, they asked, "Can you teach Ukrainian?" "Yes, I can." And I started bit by bit, and now I have all the different levels of Ukrainian, and I can teach it to the people who doesn't speak any Ukrainian, but who want and have a will to start.
It must have been only 2 or 3 years ago when you began.
Yeah, I began 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
And do you find it something interesting for Finns to study Ukrainian? How big are the groups, and how big is the interest? And do you have to fight for your job every year?
It is demanding, and first of all, I'm really appreciated to my students, and every lesson I end with word thank you for learning my own language. Minun äidinkieli.
That is true.
He can say. And I see that people are very interested in my language. A lot of people came from Russian, and sometimes they think that Russian language can help them to learn Ukrainian, but in many cases it disturbs them, and it doesn't help at all. They have no Cyrillic alphabet, and they learn Ukrainian language. I teach not only the letters, the words, and the themes. I would like to show the perspective and change perspective to move it from the Russia, because when we start to speak about the Ukrainian literature, for example, and we start to speak about Ukrainian literature at the beginning of the 20th century, and a lot of Finns said, why we can't read the Ukrainian books? I said, because all the authors were killed by the Russians. So Ukrainian culture is very rich and very old, but we totally need to remind and to tell that it has been robbed by Russians, even though they have stolen from us the name of them, you know. So it is not hard to teach, because people are interested. I'm very appreciated about that. Sometimes I need to give the guidance why it is like this and how we can cope with that.
That's very interesting, and yeah, it is some organizational methodic work to especially if people come from the background of being fluent in Russian. So you have to slowly and gradually move. It is sort of helpful, but then it is really unhelpful. So yes, I admire the work that you do. And let's get back to the future of Ukrainian studies in Finland. But I think about Ukrainian culture. And
sorry,
Natalia.
Matti. How Ukrainian culture is doing in Finland? May I add to that?
Sure, I was going to ask you about that, and also how not all Ukrainian culture has been branded as Ukrainian culture in Finland. Some of it has really been branded as Russian culture, and then you've gone and changed the signs pretty much with your own hands, right?
Yeah, of course, I believe that all of us would like to talk less about Russia, but unfortunately, it exists. Yeah, this is the most representative case of the stolen Ukrainian culture in Finland, and it was Repin's exhibition at Atheneum in the post-COVID time, August 2021, and the Ukrainian community I know in Helsinki was was very upset that Repin was presented as the Russian artist at the exhibition, and Ukraine was almost eliminated from the discussion. And we were arguing and discussing with the museum, but the museum didn't want. Even there was the Ukrainian Institute. It's a governmental organization, governmental body in Ukraine, was involved into negotiations with Atheneum that let's organize some roundtable conference with the experts from Ukraine, Russia back that time, 2021, and Finland, and talk about the identity, because it's in the world of decolonization, it's a very important topic. But the museum was not eager about that. I can understand why, because the whole exhibition was supported by the Russian museums. All the paintings were from Russian museums, and of course, like a lot of money came from Russia, and who pays? Yeah, yeah, that plays the music. So only in April 2023, Repin was identified as Ukrainian in Athenaeum. And it happened actually because in the US, Repin was in Metropolitan Museum, Repin was identified as Ukrainian. And we have also another case about Finnish museums. I read the article the other day. It was published in Ukraine on the online media LBUA. It can be Google Translate can help to translate it into English or Finnish. And I was just wondering, are there more Ukrainian artists in the Finnish museums besides Repin? And I was researching through Finnish National Gallery collection and found out that there is Aiwazovsky, there is Kuinji, and that was very interesting. You probably can't see because the screenshots are very small, but it said that Aiwazovsky was born in Mariupol, Russia, and Aiwazovsky in Krim, Feodosia, Krim, Russia, and Kuinji in Mariupol, Russia. So I contacted the curator from Senebrüха Museum. We had very good discussion, and thanks to our communication, the country was changed to Ukraine, Feodosia, Krim, Ukraine, Mariupol, Ukraine. And the outcome is that we should, there is a problem in Finland that this topic is not important or interesting for professionals here in museum area. And the second problem is that we should be more proactive, like as Ukrainian community, and check and follow this kind of things. And unfortunately, I have to criticize a bit Finnish media as well, Finnish journalism.
By all means.
That was, I'm a journalist in the first place. I became a cultural manager because I came here and I saw that Ukrainian culture is appropriated by Russia. So I involved myself since 2015 in promoting Russian culture in Finland. And in Ukraine, we were taught as journalists to discover something new. But when I come here to Finnish media with some uncovered topic, I'm told it's unknown to Finns. Sorry, we can't cover it.
Too difficult to understand any new concepts.
So I don't know why it happens. But again, like I can maybe quote the Sophie Oksanen, who said that we still, the world went through decolonization studies of Great Britain or France, but it was never done to Russian Empire and Soviet Union. Maybe this is the problem. And for example, we have this, I did the research and wrote a book, now it's translated into Finnish, about, it's a great Ukrainian artist of the beginning of the 20th century. He's from the same circle as Kazimir Malevich, well-known artist from Ukraine. And here he was in Finland for months and a half. He traveled in Karelia, the core region for Finnish national identity. And there are a bit of similarities in our history. We can follow
there is a book that Natalia Terämaa has written about Bohomazov in Finland.
It is here, yeah. And he's also, this artist is the part of important and well-accepted exhibition in the Eye of the Storm, Modernism in Ukraine, 1930s, that was exhibited in Madrid, Vienna, Brussels, London, and had very good reviews. And it was like open, like journalists were just like shocked because they were always taught that it's Russian avant-garde, it's Russian art. And Bohomazov is part of that exhibition, and hopefully this exhibition will be soon in Helsinki. I heard about that probably in a year in Athenaeum, the Ukrainian modernism will be presented there. And I believe that after that we will know more about Ukrainian culture.
But do you agree it is a very concrete kind of an issue that how do you know if an artist is Russian or Ukrainian? It is through studying the artist, right? To study who is Ukrainian and who is not, to find out the truth.
It's about the studies in general. For example, we can talk about academia as well. 2022 January, Russian troops on Ukrainian borders. Everybody talks about probably upcoming war, and the program of Ukrainian studies is closed at the University of Helsinki, and they claim that they're experts.
And then when the war began, they told me that it takes a few years to make a decision to change the schedules or the study programs. So I wonder if now that 3 years have passed, whether they have changed a lot. I mean, whether Ukrainian studies are on the rise.
No, they haven't changed. There was the conference in November, and it was mainly focused on Russia. There were just a few topics about Ukraine, and moreover, I checked the list of the professors or researchers at Alexandria Institute, and they are mostly about Russia. Their topic is Russia still.
But still it would be a practical matter for journalists, for example, to find out a list of artists who have been considered Russian falsely, or some of them actually have been living in the Russian Empire, and some of the Ukrainian artists or composers, for example, then have stayed in those times and those conditions in St. Petersburg or in Moscow, and sometimes it's just ignorance or hard to tell.
You know, this is also there is a big gap and also lack of knowledge. And
Is there such a list for journalists?
List of
Ukrainian artists who used to be called Russian.
You can no, there is not such a list, but you can easily Google it and identity, change identity of the Ukrainian artist.
Sometimes algorithms are also not helpful, and sometimes Google also gives you some Ukrainian stuff as Russian, or gives you the Russian language variant first if you are looking for something. Because the languages are eerily similar sometimes.
There is a lot of information in English.
Almost the same, yeah.
A lot of information now in English from the Ukrainian sources. But what is also, I like to discover, what was similar between our countries, because we are quite far from each other, but there are very interesting topics.
In Finland and Ukraine.
Yeah, Finland and Ukraine. And
for one, we have the Russian Tsar as a statue on our main square in the capital of our wonderful country. So I don't know if the Finnish tradition is to consider that we were colonized by Russia.
It was different. It was different for Finland than for Ukraine back that time. So the same Tsar was more or less good politician for you, but not for us. But the thing is that until World War II, our countries were closer to each other. And, for example, we can talk about Eino Leino. Yeah, we can talk about the Ukrainian news agency here in Finland, in Helsinki, in the 40s. There were also Ukrainian artists and Ukrainian musicians touring in Finland. Yeah. But after World War II, with the beginning of the Finlandization, all that was wiped off absolutely from the Finnish memory. And it's interesting to look back at the memoirs or archives and see how close we were and how much Finns knew about Ukraine until second part of the 1940s. So there is just not to be lazy to look back at the history and also to rediscover it now.
And also it could be recommended to read Sofi Oksanen's book about Ukraine. The Same River Twice, I think.
Same River Twice.
Essays,
yes.
It has a beautiful Ukrainian illustration on the cover, and she's a big friend of Ukraine. So that's a good thing. But we don't have so much time left, and we need to say something essential. All of you need to say something essential. So would you from the other side of the spectrum there, would you like to say, how do you see the future of Ukrainian culture in Finland, and what is the most important thing? I mean, I think we have established by now that you have to change the Russian narratives, you have to tackle the imperialistic names and placing people in the wrong country in history and so forth. But concretely in our life today, what else is going to happen? Please.
Okay, first of all, very important thing, to stop putting Ukrainian and Russian artists together in the same project. So this is a very, thank you.
Yeah. So it's like,
it's not only insensitive, it's not correct on any point. So this is something that I've seen a lot, and sadly there are Ukrainians who also support those things and they accept those projects. But from my perspective, it's a very wrong idea, very wrong image. It gives the feeling that we are okay with the situation, and it kind of continues this discussion about, brotherhood and so on and so forth. So no, please, let's not talk about that. That was it. But the other thing is that Ukrainian culture needs to be somehow supported in many ways, so I hope it will be understood also. But I know that there are so many residency now. Organizations are getting funding to host Ukrainian refugees artists, which is really important. So people who fled from the war, they also need to continue, doing what they're doing, what they have been doing before also. So. Yeah. They can't live without that, and of course they can go and start cleaning, or do whatever, whatever other jobs they can find, but this is a very straight support of Ukrainian culture, and this is something that we've been doing also at the Ukrainian Association. We were starting different projects with Ukrainian and Finnish professionals, artists, musicians, painters, and of course in other fields as well. So this is something that I found quite interesting and very important, that Ukrainian culture is going to be heard and seen. Actually, it will be if it is presented by a Finn.
Yeah, yeah. And culture is always about plurality. So yes. Under this umbrella of Ukrainian culture, you can find so many fascinating things. Like you can just go to YouTube, for example, if you're on your computer watching now, and you can find music, you can find theaters, you can find artistic shows, exhibitions. You can find so many things once you get interested in Ukrainian culture. And not everyone agrees what is high culture or right kind of culture. Some like more popular culture, some like more classical, but there is a wide variety. So it is really cool. So you just get out there and you can even put on your phone to Apple Music or whatever you're listening, and you can write Ukrainian songs to the Seek field, and then you can hear Ukrainian songs. So it's really this easy, it doesn't cost you anything, and it will open a whole world for you. And I think it's not just sad, and it's not just this struggle against Russia, which is of course a huge part of everything, as we can't avoid it, but there is so much cool stuff going on. I mean, if we would only go to Kyiv, if we would be there. So I can't wait. But Maria, about the language. I know you love the Ukrainian language. I can see how you enjoy your work. And it's actually great that you are able to work as a teacher also here in Finland. And I'm sure there is going to be a good future. But what is the hardest thing for Finns in the Ukrainian language? And what do they like the most? And what's it like for the Finns?
I think they like the most the sound of Ukrainian language. How does it sound? And the hardest thing is the pronouncing tse, nya, the palyanica. It is the word not only for the Russians, for Finns too. they can't hear
if
the
a Ukrainian
softness.
asks you to pronounce that word, don't even try, because there is a possibility that you will be labeled as Russian.
Yeah. And as I also would like to say that it would be nice, you gave this question before this panel. And I really want to say about the teachers, Ukrainian teachers and Ukrainian psychologists. It would be very nice to see or simplify the recognition of diplomas to these people. Because I'm the mom, and my children, they receive the help from Russian speakers in schools, and we don't know Russian, we don't speak them, so I face it with this. So another step I'm talking now to translators. Please do not force Ukrainians to speak Russian, because you can speak Russian better than Ukrainian. It's my... and if you don't know the Ukrainian well, please come to my classes into Kesariopisto, or I'm opening now my own company. It's called Malva Academy, and I'm going to teach Ukrainian not only in the university, on my own, with your help. And I would like to say 2 words to Ukrainians in Ukrainian, if you don't mind.
That would be wonderful.
Будь ласка, якщо ви наймаєте перекладача, стійте на тому, щоб ви розмовляли українською. Тільки українською. That's all.
So, time for your final thoughts, dear panelists. Now the rock and roll downstairs has also stopped for a while. The main thing that you want to leave us with tonight, I know what mine is.
While girls are thinking, because they were talking a lot before, so what to do? You are very welcome to Ukraine season multidisciplinary festival that takes place in autumn, mostly in Helsinki, and it was my big dream to present here Ukrainian culture as wide as possible, and we were able to implement that with the Ukrainian Association in Finland, Ukrainalaisten yhdistys Suomessa, and what is our biggest achievements? For example, for the first time in 2023, we presented Ukraine at Helsinki Kirjamessut. Before, Ukraine was not presented there. And we have, for 2 years, we had a Ukrainian stand there and also Ukrainian program at Helsinki Kirjamessut. And also we have the Ukrainian Film Festival, Ukrainalaisten elokuvan päivät, where we show contemporary films and also Ukrainian classics. We do concerts, and Irina is in charge of those concerts, and she's a professional musician. We also arrange art exhibitions. We show Ukrainian theater. So unfortunately, not always we have a support of Finnish media, but we are working hard on that, and this is where you can discover Ukrainian culture. I will criticize Ukrainian state as well. We have a very powerful Ukrainian institute, however, they are limited in resources and finances, and Finland is not their priority. So it's understandable. However, we hope that we will get more support of the Ukrainian embassy in here, because to spread the word about these events. Because in Ukrainian season, we also support the Ukrainian artists who suffer from the war, and some of them are in the army, Ukrainian army. They are not professional soldiers, military, but we let them for the last 2 years. We let them to come abroad and like switch their focus to something peaceful and something different, not always be involved into topics about deaths. The last thing is also about what to do. Yeah. So take seriously the topic of decolonization, about identifying and describing Ukrainian heritage. Language is important, and then we have to revise Russian culture and Russian studies, and this is what academia should do, because it is focused, Western academic world is focused on Russia very, very much. And here there is a quotation of Mikhail Petrovsky, the State Hermitage Museum director, when he admitted that they use culture as the tool of their war against the West, and of course discover Ukraine. And by that we mean that don't be afraid to cover unknown topics, to cover something difficult or unusual. Just be curious, please.
Exactly right. I agree very much, and give attention to Ukraine. I mean, just give space and time in your programs and on your newspaper pages for Ukraine, no matter what the angle actually is, whether it's culture, whether it's the war issues, just keep talking about it, because it does not go away. And would you have some final remarks?
Sure, would love to. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. Before we leave, I need to say that. And of course, yeah, Russia uses their culture and art as a weapon. So we need to understand that, and we need to kind of put it on pause. This is very important. This is something that I've been talking at the conferences, and unfortunately people even here, they don't feel the same way. So performing Russian music, you know, paying for Russian services, this needs to be stopped, just for the reason because they are getting royalties, they're getting, you know, money in some ways. So people need to be somehow, you know, mindful. They need to understand that not directly, but they are supporting the country aggressor.
The Russian cultural world and entertainment world is very, very deeply connected
culture.
With the Kremlin and the special services and the war efforts.
And those artists then support their, like they call наши мальчики, our guys from the Russian army. So those money go there.
And the other thing I wanted to say, because maybe this message would find the right audience, together with the Ukrainian Association, we are collecting music instruments to be sent to Ukraine, to Ukrainian music schools. So if you happen to have an instrument you don't need, well, we gladly will take it. Please contact me or someone from the Ukrainian Association or Ukraine Talos or Vitaly. We will be in touch. This is something that is also very needed, because those kids, you know, that are in Ukraine, they want to continue doing what they were doing. There are a lot of kids that are displaced from occupied territories. They are living now in other cities. They need to play their instruments. And we've heard there are people who left their houses without nothing. So of course they didn't take their instruments. We need to support them. And this is what we are trying to do. So
thank you very much. And thank you all for the work that you do for culture and for language, for the film festivals and all of this stuff that you're doing. It's really amazing. So I applaud you. And for the Finnish audience, I would say that we should really stop. That's my wrap up of today, is that we should really stop comparing Ukraine to anything. We should just try and see Ukraine as it is. And even if we need to talk about Russia because of the oppression and because of all these problems I mentioned, it is really refreshing to dive into Ukraine just as Ukraine. And we cannot really compare Ukraine to Finland either, even if we know that we have a lot of similar experiences. And that is why we really want to stand with Ukraine. But of course, it is not exactly the same. And neither is the experience of Belarusians or anybody else in the world. And we should really have someone like Timothy Snyder, the professor of Yale, history professor. He's really my idol these days, and you should check his lectures out. He put out a lecture series in Yale 2 or 3 years ago about Ukrainian history. It was about 20 lectures long, and you can watch it all on YouTube. And we don't unfortunately have, well, maybe when I grow up in some years, I would have to go around the block like 1,000 times. But we would need someone, Timothy Snyder of Finland at least, of local level.
There is Johannes Remi, the historian who wrote Ukrainian history.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So there are advocates, but there are not so many. And journalists, we need journalists who, I mean, we have very few journalists who used to specialize on Russia. It was a marginal thing. And you have and it's important that you have like 3 or 5 people that I respect from my colleagues who are really great specialists on Russia. They are not fans of Russia, but they are great journalists who have worked in Russia. On Ukraine, well, now you have 1, maybe 2, 3, I don't know. There are people who have been working there as war correspondents. But all of this is something we have to build as well. And we are in tough times in journalism, and the resources are scarce. So we need leadership, and we need role models, and we need opinion leaders, and we need to keep talking about Ukraine.
With Ukrainians.
But not without Ukrainians, I might add. Thank you so much, everybody. Дуже дякую. And let's do this again sometime.
Please, once again, round of applause for our wonderful panelists here. And also a special round of applause for our brilliant moderator today, Matti Posio. Vasil, please come here. The gift?
But he has already.
Well, the second gift.
Yes, Matt. I suppose that this is the same.
I think I got it from you. From me, many years ago.
Well, now he has 2. Let's give a round of applause for that.
Thank you. Really, as you see.
Дякую за допомогу. Дякую за...
Дякую.
I want to say thank you to the volunteers of Ukraina Talo, this wonderful place, and how they make this wonderful evening possible. Without them, this wouldn't be possible at all. I want to thank deeply Ukrainian Association in Finland. Without Ukrainian Association in Finland, this event wouldn't be remotely possible. Thank you as well. Please, yes. And to wonderful team of Ukrainian Association in Tampere, who's done also a lot of work to do all this coordination and preparations and so on and so forth. Now, the panelists probably haven't been following. Some of people in the audience, I'm sure, were following the news online. At this very moment, Ukrainian President Zelensky is prematurely leaving the White House after fighting with Trump literally live in front of cameras.
Physically?
Well, not physically, but, well, I wouldn't be surprised. Tough times, very turbulent moments. We don't know what kind of support we will see tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow is going to be like. But I will tell you one thing. Ukrainians have been through that already. Ukrainians live like this for over 11 years already. Yeah, the war has not started in 2022. It's just the second half, the full-scale invasion half, the more intense part. But we never gave up because we don't have another choice. And in moments like this, we tend to feel desperate and sad and so on and so forth. But there's a very, very nice cure of that. This cure is called donating to the army forces of Ukraine. So, in the meantime, you see this sort of QR codes on your seats all over the place. So thanks to the cooperation with our wonderful friends, your Finnish friends, Arju, Elmer. Shout out to Elmer over there. We are gonna buy 2 4x4 like pickup trucks, like off-road vehicles, and donate them to Ukrainian defenders. And you have a wonderful opportunity tonight to transform your frustration, your anger, into physical help. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.